Alright, well, what is going on today? We are going to be talking about why we work out and why we should be making better choices with weight selections in our workouts. It has been a hot topic as of late, so I just want to clear a few things up. So when we're looking to optimize our workouts, we are trying to create the most power as possible in the given time with the given stimulus. Now, this is a general rule of thumb. There are some workouts where we're trying to go heavier, which will naturally not produce the most power in a given time. But we're going to use a very simple example that you're going to be able to apply and really be able to understand why it's so important and how it does add up, and how going heavy isn't always better. Just because you can do a weight doesn't mean you should. We always want to be hitting whatever the stimulus is for that workout. So let's start with the basics. Power, it equals force times distance over time, multiplied by the amount of reps that are completed. So your force is whatever load you're lifting. Your distance is the range of motion of the movement. We're going to be using a push press in a second. And then the time is how long it takes you to complete it. And then obviously reps are how many reps you complete in the given time frame. So in our example here, we're going to do an AMRAP 1. Again, not realistic. We won't do an AMRAP 1 just by itself. It might be with other things, but this is to paint a picture. Push presses, that's all you're doing. So push press, we have a bar on our shoulders, we're dipping, and we're driving it up. Two things are going to stay constant here. The time and the distance. Hypothetically, we'll say it's 2 feet, so we'll cross out 2 feet. We got two examples on the board here. And then, of course, we're taking a minute. So these two things cancel out in the equation. Now, what that leaves us with is the force and the amount of reps. So let's take a look at this example. With 75 pounds on the bar, let's say you get in 30 reps. You're cruising. It takes you on average about 2 seconds to get a rep, or I should say a rep every 2 seconds. Pretty good pace. It's relatively lightweight for you. That's around where we want to be for today's workout. So let's say, wrong marker. There she is. We're going to switch it up, go a little complementary action. So we're doing 30 reps. Now, let's say you try then a 95-pound bar, and you're like, oh, hell yeah, this is 20 pounds heavier. Of course I'm going to do this in the workout today. Obviously, now that bar is heavier, which means you're going to be completing less reps. Let's say in a minute you're able to do 22 push presses. Let's say here you had to break up twice, but you could do something like 2 sets of 15 and have a little break in between. But let's say now, for that 95-pound bar, you have to do 2 sets of 11 or so. And you get in 22 reps in a minute because your movement's slower. You take longer time to rest in between picking that bar up. So if that's the case, let's put a little 30 right here. Or sorry, 22. 22, not 30, I misspoke. And now what we see is, we're going to see what our power output is. Again, normally if you're comparing kind of different loads and different time frames and different reps that you're getting in, there's going to be more variables that come into play. But this is specifically just looking at weight selection and power output. So the 75-pound bar, we get 30 reps. If you multiply that out, that's going to give you 2,250. 2,250. Now, common sense might tell us, we got 95 pounds on that bar, 20 pounds heavier. We did less reps, but it was only 8 less reps, so it's probably not that big of a deal, not that big of a difference. I would still probably put my money on the 95 pounds producing more power. However, that doesn't turn out to be the case. When we multiply that out, we end up with 2,090. So that's a relatively big difference. I don't know what the percentage is. I didn't do that calculation, but it's different. 2,250, 2,090. If we're trying to be as efficient as we can, as optimal as we can, it would have been a smarter choice for us to do the 75 pounds. In the long run, this is where we're going to see more results, when our body is producing more power, not necessarily heavier. So again, heavier doesn't always mean, just because you can do a weight doesn't always mean you should. I hope this helps clarify a couple of things that I know a lot of people have been going back and forth on in the private Facebook group. So if you got any questions, let me know.